Hi, my name is Pauline Gault. I am a junior here at Alma College. I am an anthropology major, and the title of my research is Knitting for Identity: How the Alienation of Clothing Production Unraveled Our Understanding of the Clothing We Wear. A brief outline of my presentation: I'm going to talk about how alienation applies to fabric production, and then I'm going to talk about my methods of data collection through my historical research and through my data collection with an online survey via Qualtrics. After that, I'm going to go into a brief data analysis of what I've collected so far, and then I will talk about where knitting is today in society and the importance of it. After that, I will talk about the impacts of alienation with fast fashion, overproduction of fabric, and secondhand shopping, and I'll finish with some conclusions. So the theoretical perspective that I used for this research is Karl Marx's concept of alienation. There are 4 kinds of alienation: worker from the product, worker from the act of producing, worker from themselves as the producer, and the worker from other workers. All of the 4 of these concepts are involved in this presentation. For example, in the top picture, that is a knitting machine that is used to mass produce fabric at an exponential rate compared to an individual producer, such as the bottom, we have knitting needles and knitting a sock. The worker is involved in every aspect of creating this the sock, whereas in the top picture with the knitting machine, the knitting machine makes mass-produced fabric at a much larger rate. So briefly, what is knitting? Knitting is essentially linking one row of loops with another row of loops to create fabric. And this can be made to make hats, bags, blankets, anything. There's some pictures here that have the step-by-step process in a very simple way, but for the sake of time, I will not go into the direct process. I go more into this in my research essay. So the methods for my research: I utilize journal databases here at the college, such as JSTOR and ProQuest. I also utilize resources such as Mailcat and Interlibrary Loan. And then for some more relevant data, I had some news articles from the New York Times. I also had 15 years of experience knitting. And for my data collection, I used an anonymous online 22-question multiple-choice survey via Qualtrics. So for my survey, as I said, 22 questions. Some of those sample questions included: I collected some basic demographic information such as age, gender identity, year in school, and the size of the hometown that the participant resided in. Some of the sample questions are: have you ever shopped at a secondhand store within the past 3 years? How many items in your closet are secondhand or hand-me-down? And what do you think the reason is for someone to shop at a secondhand store? And these are some of the preliminary results. As I said, this research is still ongoing. At the time of this recording, I have 66 responses for my survey. But I'm already seeing some trends start to appear. So at the first question, have you shopped at a secondhand store in the past 3 years? The majority of the participants, 75%, said that yes, they have, and this is concurrent with the second question: how many items in your closet are secondhand and hand-me-down? The majority of participants said that they do own secondhand clothing. For the last question, what do you think the reason is for someone to shop at a secondhand store? The top answers that I have received are for financial reasons, for environmental reasons, and for fast fashion or following trends. So knitting today. Knitting is a social activity. It helps restore the connection lost through alienation, since it is a form of fabric production. A lot of the people who learn how to knit are taught by family members. I was taught by my grandmother, and that is a trend that I have found with a lot of people, is that the skill of knitting actually skips a generation. A lot of people who know how to knit learned from a grandmother. There are knitting groups and clubs, such as right now, they're very popular online because of the pandemic. You can go on to Zoom, you can go on to Facebook, you can find other people and share patterns, share your works in progress, and just overall anything that you really want. And it's a way to connect with other knitters, because not many people in person knit. Knitting is also a form of art, and it can be a form of activism. So on this side, there's 2 different examples of knitting activism. The first one is Yarn Bombing Day, otherwise known as Knit in Public Day. And it's a day where people go and they take their knitting into public. They cover objects with colorful fabrics. So in the top picture, it's trees. In the bottom picture, it's a park bench. And the goal is to just bring color and some art and some fun to the everyday mundane life. On the other side here is the picture from the 2017 Women's March in Washington. And the pattern is what's known as the pussy hat pattern. This pattern was shared widely online in 2017, and it is for the hat that is bright, it's pink, and it's made to look like it has cat ears. They are a response to the misogynistic comments made by the former president. And as you can see, almost everyone in the picture is wearing some form of the hat, but these hats were not mass-produced. They were individually produced by a wide many of people, which is interesting because if you see a person with the same hat, you have that connection, you know what the hat means. Knitting is also a form of moving meditation. It can help reduce stress and anxiety. I can attest to this. It has a lot of repetitive movement, which is what makes it meditative. It also makes you very task-oriented. You have to be focused on the pattern. You can forget about whatever else is going on. You can just focus on the stitches. And working and learning from others. You can talk through problems with others. You can share your current problem with the pattern online. And it's a form of connection. So when fabric went from individually produced to mass-produced after the Industrial Revolution, this led to fabric becoming more widely available, and this leads to a trend called fast fashion. Fast fashion is not the same thing as changing trends seasonally. Seasonally, from fall to winter to spring to summer, is different from fast fashion because that is when retailers put new clothes out on their retail floor every 4 to 6 months. And because of that is possible because of the availability of fabric. And a lot of the fabrics that are mass-produced today are synthetic fibers. Synthetic fibers do not biodegrade as fast as organic fibers, and they pile up in landfills, such as the picture down here. And that is a form of pollution. Now, secondhand shopping is a way to help alleviate this problem, but what I'm finding through my research is that there is a social stigma attached to secondhand shopping. So secondhand and thrift shopping. Secondhand shopping is buying items and shopping for items that had a previous owner. This could be online or this could be in person. It is an environmentally friendly way to shop, but why don't more people do it? Part of the reason is alienation and the cycle of fast fashion. People want to keep up with the current trends of society. They want to be wearing what's current and what's new. What I've found with my survey is that people have connotations between secondhand and vintage. There's a class connotation. Secondhand is associated with lower class, and vintage is associated with upper class, because vintage is considered shopping for clothes that were popular 20 to 30 years ago, but secondhand is shopping for clothes that were owned within the last year of someone. And it's associated with not having the financial means to keep up with the current fashion trends. So some conclusions. Understanding the process of how something goes from cotton to yarn to a sweater, it really helps us start to undervalue the actual work that goes into producing clothing. Survey results have so far indicated a very severe lack of knowledge from participants about the clothing that they wear. A majority of participants, when asked if they could say where their clothing was made and what it was made out of, said no. So my appreciation for knitting has taught me to value what I put on my body, because I have tried making something from yarn to a sweater, and it does not turn out to be a sweater. So the learning to knit can help restore the connection lost from alienation. And just some acknowledgements. The people who helped to make this research possible: my grandmothers for teaching me how to knit, my faculty advisor, Dr. Kirsten Landau, all the survey participants, all the other Anthro majors and minors who helped peer edit, and my sister Phoebe for listening to this presentation many times.